Hey everybody, let's talk about some terminology that you may not know when you first start playing the Division. You're going to hear about this stuff from people. You're going to hear them talk about firearms builds, skill builds, toughness builds, this build, that build, everywhere a build. And basically, like if you're like me, when you come back to the Division after you've been away for a while, or if you're just starting, you have no idea what the fuck these people are saying. So I'm going to try to explain it to you a little bit, and hopefully it'll be helpful. So if you look at the top of your screen here, you have three different numbers, right? Let's focus on the first set of numbers. The first set of numbers has your primary DPS of your primary DPS minus 295, and then under that we have a firearms number. How do those things affect what's up? This first set of numbers is all about your weapons and how much damage you're doing when you're out shooting people, okay? So very important, most important part of the Division, right? You're just out there to shoot shit. So let's talk about how the firearms number affects your weapons. The firearms number is going to determine what the DMG number on the right over here is going to be. This one is 18.9, just to draw your attention to it. The better that firearms number is, the higher that DMG number is going to be. Now, what does that DMG number mean? That is the number of damage per bullet when you land it on the target. Okay, and that helps make up your DPS number. Now let's look at the other number next to it, which is your RPM, or rounds per minute number. The rounds per minute number is also going to help determine your DPS number. The higher that is, and the higher the GMG number are, is going to add up to some really nice DPS. And then there's some other factors too, but we won't get into those right now. Now, let's look at what kind of gun we're looking at right now, since we're talking about guns anyway. This is an assault rifle. All assault rifles are going to give you extra enemy armor damage, okay? This one gives you 20%. Sniper rifles are going to give you extra headshot damage. Let's talk about sniper rifles for a minute. On sniper rifles, you're trying to get an enemy down with one shot as much as possible, right? And you're not doing very many shots per minute if you're using a bolt action, which is really what you want to go for because they have much heavier DMG damage. So on this particular round, this rifle, I'm going to get 127,000 damage per round that I fire into somebody. Of course, I'm going to be taking my sweet ass time to do that. Now you'll notice on a sniper rifle that you're going to get extra headshot damage on all marksman rifles, okay? So you'll notice that the RPM is not very high and the mag is not very big, but that's okay because it's not like we're running around just randomly shooting this shit into people and hip firing and stuff like that. We're trying to get people down in one shot from far away. Okay, so, and let's talk about talents while we're at it too. Talents are something that your rifle may be especially good at. I don't really know how they come up with this shit, but whatever. So on this, you're going to want to fit the talent to the type of weapon and to the way that you play. The way that, when I say play style, people talk about things called play styles. That's really a term that I don't really get, but whatever. And I'm just going to think of it like this. How do you move around during combat? Do you like to fire from far away or up close and personal? Do you roll around a lot? Do you use cover? Do you get flustered in combat? Do you get nervous when there's tons of people around and stuff like that? That's going to determine how you play. So if you find yourself mostly firing from afar or you're up close and personal with people, then, that's really going to determine what kind of talents you're going to want, what kind of guns you're going to want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You'll figure it out, basically. Just whatever comes naturally. That's what your play style is whatever comes naturally. So the talents on this are going to need to match the weapon and the purpose of the weapon and how you play. This particular sniper rifle has talents of brutal for headshot damage, prepared for damage from being far away, and then elevated, which are all perfect for sniper rifle. Okay, so as we said, the sniper rifle damage, the sniper rifle thing that comes with the characteristic is going to be extra headshot damage. LMGs have extra damage to targets out of cover. Submachine guns have critical hit damage. And then your shotguns are going to give you stagger, which is really pretty cool, I guess. I don't really use them very much. Now that we've talked about that, let's go and talk about. Let's do one more dive into. What you're talking about with your guns and your firearms. If you look here, you go over to the character tab, which is the second tab, and then you look at your firearms, you'll see that firearms number makes your damage better because firearms increases weapon damage by whatever that number is under the primary DPS, okay? And then you're going to look over here at your weapons. The weapon damage for this particular weapon is that number right there, and that's the damage at optimal range with the current weapon and all bonuses included. It's also going to tell you a whole bunch of other stuff too, okay? I'm going to tell you one thing about weapons, and that is you want to mod them for stability because you can't get any damage on a target if you can't hit it, all right? So that's really important to know, all right? Let's see. I don't think there's anything else exciting on there. So now let's go back and let's look at armor, okay, and let's look at gear. Now you're going to hear people talk about things like a skill build, a firearms build, a blah 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 build, this build, everywhere build. You know, we went over that, but what's going to determine that build is largely going to be the gear that you have on, okay? So when you're talking about gear, you're going to have different kinds of talents on there, or different characteristics, okay? So what you're going to be looking at here, when you look at this particular piece of gear, this vest, this vest is what we call rolled for firearms. That means in the right panel that we're looking at right now, the first number on the left, your firearms number on this piece, is 1129. That is the biggest of those three numbers. That means it's rolled for firearms, okay? So if we go and look at okay, so then we look at this mask. This mask, the biggest number on it is the stamina number. That means it's rolled for stamina, okay? So there you go. That's all that means when somebody says it's rolled for this or rolled for that, blah, 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 blah. That's what that means, all right? So, and then you're going to hear people say they're going to go and roll this for something else, this or that or the other, or if it's got a God roll. What they're talking about is you're going to go over to this recalibration table down here in the terminal, or upstairs. I think there's one up there too. And you're going to just, you know, look at it and see what you want to improve on it, basically. All right. So, and when you do get a piece that you are going to improve on, what you want to do is look at it and see if, well, first of all, you want to check and see if it's better than what you have. Obviously, everybody knows that, right? But then you also want to decide, you know, are the numbers on it appropriate? Okay, now this particular holster has all three numbers over 1200. If one of those was under 1200, I would want to re-roll it and bring that number up. If there's more than two of them under 1200, then it's not as good as this one, and then I don't want to pick up that particular holster. However, if I had a holster that had, you know, that wasn't as good, then yeah, I'd pick it up because I'd re-roll it for something. And then this holster also has extra armor. And the reason why it has extra armor is because I didn't have to re-roll any of the top numbers. I just re-rolled it for extra armor to help my stamina, my toughness stat. So whenever you pick up something, if you look at it and you have more than one characteristic that isn't ideal or isn't better than what you already have, then don't pick it up. Just sell it, because there's no point in rolling it and spending your money on that if you're not going to be able to really get what you want. And if, like I said, you have to re-roll more than one thing, guess what? You only get to re-roll one thing. So if there's two problems, then ditch it. Okay, so now let's talk about what people are talking about when they talk about legendary gear. Legendary gear is nothing except gear that falls off when you kill a main boss, like the main characters in the game, like LeRae Barrett, Charles Bliss, Joe Farrow, LeRae Barrett being the Rikers head person, and Joe Farrow being the cleaner's head person, and then Charles Bliss being the head person of the LMB. Okay, so you're going to be able to get legendary gear pieces from these different bosses. But right now I have Barrett's chest piece. You can look over here at the talent on it. It's pretty cool. And then I also have the short bows knee pads, which are my absolute favorite because they reduce the fuse time on grenades to 0.2 seconds. That's really exciting because otherwise people run away from that shit. And bitch, I ain't wasting my grenades on that shit, okay? And then I don't have Pharaoh's mask yet. I do have the Ninja Bike messenger bag. I do have the Skulls MC gloves. Those two particular pieces, the bag and then the Skulls MC gloves, those you can get pretty much anywhere, I think. There's no particular boss that those drop from. And I do have Bliss's holster. It's not equipped right now. So that's what people are talking about when they say legendary gear, okay? So let's talk about stamina. What is going to determine your stamina, and what do those numbers mean? So my number right now is a 430,510 toughness, and then the stamina is at 6615. Then what does that mean? Okay, so the way that you're going to find out what that means and really get a good understanding of it is by looking at the survivability numbers. Look, it explains what your toughness is, it explains what your max health is, your armor, and you're going to hear people talk about damage mitigation, and you really want that to be above 50% if you can manage it. Okay, so and then it's going to show you all sorts of things like health regeneration, just everything you ever want to know and figure out about what that toughness number means and where it comes from. You're going to find out in survivability here under the character tab. Now let's talk about the skill power number. That's the third one on the right. Skill power right now is at 138k, and electronics are about 3000k. And skill power is going to what is going to determine. If you look over here, you look here in your little pop-up HUD, which is grayed out right now because we're in the terminal. But okay, so let's go over here. You look at your abilities here. I've got my 3 different abilities, right? And your skill power is going to determine a couple different things: how strong or how well your skills work, and then how quickly do they regenerate, how quickly do they come back up. Now let's go over the character tab and look at the information on skills. Okay, so your skill power, you see the 138,000 improves your skills basically. Boom. Skill haste, that's when you would add like little bonuses and stuff to bring that up. And it doesn't really talk a whole lot about that, but basically that's what we're looking at when we're talking about skills. How fast do they come up, and also how well are they going to work? How much damage are you going to do with those fuckers? So that's basically what you're looking at that. And that's about it. Thanks. Bye.